Hi everyone, welcome to Sense in Essence. Today we are going to talk about rising in love. Now, this
Om Shanti.
Good evening, Om Shanti, everyone. Welcome to tonight's talk. And it's good to see all of you here. So, tonight's topic will be inner leadership. Who is the boss in my own mind? Sounds very interesting. And the speaker will be Sister Rona Schweitz. She is the center coordinator for the Manhattan Meditation Center in New York. So she will be with us for the next hour. And a reminder for everyone, the microphone will be open. So there will be at the end of the lecture, you can ask any question you have to the speaker or in between the lecture. And also this lecture is being recorded and being posted on our Facebook page and also on YouTube. So you can go and um, to YouTube or Facebook and watch the lecture again. So also you can visit our website, the Manhattan Meditation Center.org. So you can check our website and find all the lectures that has been recorded and many meditation exercises also, as well as all the programs that we have during the year. Okay, so we will have Sister Rona with us, and she will be our host for the evening. Thank you, Om Shanti.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Sister Anna.
Good evening.
Nice meeting everyone for this inner leadership talk. Who is the boss in your own mind? And maybe we can start with a few minutes of silence and some reflection, and I will speak a few words and see if you can follow them. One way to know who is the boss in my mind, in my head, is to see if I can guide my thoughts. Are there any images coming to mind where thoughts are pulled? Or can I choose thoughts? Can I choose images that I want to hold in the mind? Or is it just a random scramble of thoughts? Who decides my thoughts? Surely it should be me. So for a minute or so, let us aim to choose a specific topic. It can be simple, like a star, certain image that you like. And for a minute, just hold that image with a certain feeling connected to that image. Hold that in your mind. Be gentle, but concentrated. Tiny living light. Star. Thank you. When this topic comes to mind, just give me a moment. Trying to get another gadget to be able to do some sketching for you. It's not working. So this topic of inner leadership and who is the boss in our own mind. One thing that helps is to ask yourself what is going on in my mind and who decides my thoughts and who decides my choices and who decides my decisions. And are these decisions and these choices and these thoughts beneficial for me? Many times people tell me their mind is like a chaos, all kinds of thoughts. They can't concentrate. There are some undercurrent of anxiety, some undercurrent of uh, um, discontentment, or some undercurrent of depression, and that is like in which all kinds of thoughts are embedded. Now, we are generally not taught how to deal with our mind. We are not taught how to think. We are not taught what our inner dynamics are. No? Many of us, we learn to take care of our body. You take shower twice a day, you brush your teeth, you put on your clothes. We are taught how to make the face look good, and creams and makeup and brushing of hair. We are taught all those things while growing up. And how to eat, what to eat, and physical exercise. We are taught how to take care of the body, either through our parents and or our upbringing or our culture or in school. But we are generally not taught about the dynamics of consciousness. We are generally not taught about how my mind functions and how this discernment power functions and decision power and how to organize my inner world and also how to keep it clean. how to keep it in shape, how to keep it in good condition, how to be the one who is ruling my own mind. So the whole area of spirituality addresses this in a detailed way. But first, just a few questions for you to kind of get an insight into what is the condition of your own mind. And so if you have a pen and paper or something you can write on for yourself, this is not to share with others, for yourself, to get a kind of a idea of the quality of your mind and of how much you are in charge. Is there that inner leadership? Because many times we try to uh, um, control external things or people, or we want to be in, maybe for some of us, giving leadership to others. But how can we do all that if we can't even get order in our own inner world? So just to get an idea of the condition of your inner world and how much you are in charge inside. Now, one question, and you can just write for yourself, just a guess. It's not like a big examination, but just to get a feeling. How many of your thoughts, how many thoughts you think you had today? Just write down a bit of a guess. How many thoughts you had during the day since you got up until now? Some might say thousands, tens of thousands. Some even say millions. I don't think it is that much. But many, many, many thoughts. Second question. How many of those thoughts were thoughts of harmony or thoughts of peace? How many thoughts that you had were thoughts that were beneficial? Just give you can put in percentage. How many of the thoughts you had were thoughts of your choice? Your conscious thoughts, or you felt they just were pushed into the mind? And then another question is, your thoughts are connected with feelings. So what is the general mood of your mind overall during the day? Is it a mood of contentment? Is it a mood of stress? Is it a mood of sadness? Is it a mood of love? Is it a mood of enthusiasm? What is the overall atmosphere in your mind? Just for yourself to give an idea. And then the last question is, how would you want your mind to be? What would be like your destination? If you would be fully in charge of your inner world, if you would be fully in charge of your mind, how would that mind be? What would be like your destination for the mind? Because a good leader also knows where to go, what, in which direction to go, and what the destination is. Okay, so this was like a little bit of something for you to check. Now, just like your body has different organs or different parts, and they all function together and make this body work and work for you, in the same way, your inner world also has different organs, you could say, or different functions. And consciousness has different functions. And one of those functions is the mind. And your mind does different things. One thing is it is like a screen on which thoughts emerge. But thoughts are connected with your feelings and your emotions. In the mind also, there is a certain attitude. In the mind also, there are certain emotions and feelings. And all of that is happening in your mind. But there is another function of consciousness, and that is the function of what is called the intellect. And intellect is like the guiding force. The intellect, say there is a certain thought, oh, I want ice cream, for example. And then the intellect has to discern, should I or should I not have ice cream? So the intellect is like the wisdom with which you make certain choices and decisions. The intellect is like the filter that allows thoughts to materialize into actions, or even just allows thoughts to stay or not. That is the function of the intellect. So the intellect has discerning power, the intellect has decision power, the intellect has analytical power, the intellect has the power to, how to say that, to merge certain thoughts or to emerge certain thoughts. That is another function within consciousness. Now, for us to be boss in our own mind, it means that our thoughts and our decisions should not be what is it? Inspired, maybe not the right word, created by external circumstances. It should not be created by others or by situations. Now, sometimes it happens that certain thoughts are cyclical and repetitive. A certain situation happens, say, at work, or even with some friends or with family. A certain situation happens, and we keep on thinking about that situation and thinking and thinking and thinking again and thinking again and thinking again, that same situation. And more we think of it, bigger it grows in our mind and deeper the impression of that situation in our subconscious. So that is a third area of consciousness. One is the mind, which is like a screen for those thoughts to pop up, the intellect, and the subconscious. And so if we have a certain situation that keeps coming in the mind, that keeps coming in the mind, that keeps coming repetitively, cyclically, even the next day again and the next day again, that situation creates an impression in our subconscious. And more we think of it, the bigger that impression is in our subconscious. And so it was triggered by an external situation, those thoughts, but the intellect did not filter and did not say, oh, this is not a useful thing for me to keep on thinking and thinking and thinking. So the intellect did not act appropriately, just let that situation repetitively. And so that impression in our subconscious becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. That situation may have happened only once It maybe was a situation of 10 minutes once. But in my subconscious, it becomes so big because every time I think of it again and again and again and again. And now that impression itself becomes a trigger to create thoughts again. So the external trigger is not there anymore because that situation is not there anymore. But the impression that I have stored in my subconscious, that itself becomes a trigger to every time create thoughts and thoughts and thoughts and thoughts. And the intellect is there, but it doesn't work. It doesn't interfere in that. And so it becomes a cyclical situation where we repeatedly think about the same thing over and over again. Now, if it is a situation that makes you frustrated, it means you are repeatedly thinking that thing, and repeatedly you're creating feelings of frustrations in your mind. Now, feelings of frustration do not empower you. Feelings of frustration makes you weaker. And so there is even less chance that the intellect will stop it because you feel weaker in general and you get exhausted. Your thoughts, your mind get exhausted. And so this is a situation where we have disempowered ourselves and given away this leadership position, you could say, this inner leadership to rule and to guide our mind. in an ideal situation where we are as if boss in our own head, the intellect is empowered, the intellect holds a clear vision, the intellect has wisdom, common sense, and whatever thought comes on the mind, the intellect says, is this a useful thought or is it not a useful thought? Is this a beneficial thought or is it not a beneficial thought? And the intellect can choose to dismiss it. The intellect can choose to encourage it. The intellect can choose to say, this is not useful. One thought, okay, but not a second thought. And so this is when we are boss in our own mind, boss in our own head, when the intellect is empowered to and alert enough to say, okay, these thoughts, these images that are there in the mind, these ideas that are floating in the mind, that just come into the mind, whether they come from past impressions or whether they come from external triggers. If the intellect is strong to say, this is useful and this is not useful. This I want to keep, this I don't want to keep. This thought pattern, I'm not going to continue on it. And this thought pattern I could. Then the intellect can substitute one thought pattern or one certain type of thoughts for other type of thoughts. A certain topic that is harassing my mind and say, stop, I want to think about other things. There are thousands of things to think about. Let me go into my reservoir of thoughts or of topics of things that I want to think about. And that is that inner leadership, when that mind doesn't go crazy without any guidance from the intellect. That when we have that, what would be the word? That inner control and inner power. Now, how do we empower the intellect? Now, intellect is empowered when we have a clear purpose for our day, a clear purpose for our week, a clear purpose for our life. The clarity of aim helps the intellect, because then every thought can be measured in function of that aim. And aim doesn't need to be only like a physical aim. I want to, at the end of the day, I want to have done my groceries, and I want to have gone to the dentist, and I want to have met my friend. That is maybe a physical aim that we have. That is also good to have, like a proper agenda, a structure to your life, and a certain aim every day. But you can also have an inner aim. Now, for example, today I will practice this power of gratitude. Every scene in my life and every interaction in my life, everything that happens in my life, let me see the lesson within it, or the benefit within it, or the beauty within it. Even a simple thing like the subway. I live in Manhattan, in New York City, and there is a huge subway system here. And we take that for granted. So going on the subway, instead of thinking, oh, they're late and it is not clean and there are all kind of funny people in the subway, instead of that, I can also look at it from what an intricate system of transport. And what an amazing thing that in half an hour it can take me from one side of Manhattan all the way to the Bronx or to Brooklyn without traffic jam, without anything. And I did nothing to contribute to that system. I'm just using it. So the intellect, to use the intellect to look at constructive sides of situations, look at beneficial sides of situations, and with a feeling of gratitude, with a feeling of I'm receiving all of this. Lessons or benefit, we empower the intellect when we are doing that. When we are consistently choosing to approach situations from a positive perspective or from a positive view, you're training your intellect to look at the what is the word? The beneficial sides, the beneficial side of situation. That is one way to empower the intellect. Another way to empower the intellect is to reflect on to reflect silently or quietly or extended periods of time on deeper topics pertaining life. For example, your purpose in life. To deeply reflect on that. Or a certain situation, you reflect on it. What is my lesson of that situation? Or to reflect on your true identity, or to reflect on spiritual topics. To take time to deeply reflect and come to some understanding of things. That is how you train and empower your intellect. And to do that by yourself. And not having all the time interactions with others or with gadgets or with Google or YouTube or the television, but to learn to be on your own with yourself in your own mind and deeply reflect, allow thoughts of certain topics that are useful to reflect on that. Another way to empower the intellect is to obtain useful information. And in this context, especially spiritual wisdom. More there is wisdom about the true self, the soul, wisdom about the dynamics of life from a spiritual perspective, of what are the laws that govern our lives and what is there beyond the physical, to reflect on those things. That is what empowers the intellect. Meditation empowers the intellect. Meditation is the practice of consciously choosing spiritual thoughts and to hold those spiritual thoughts in your mind until they get a feeling, a certain spiritual experience. All these things empower the intellect. And to be in charge of your own inner world, one needs empowered intellect, because only the intellect can say these thoughts no, these thoughts yes, introducing other kinds of thoughts. Now, one other aspect of this inner leadership is to know that over time we may have collected in our subconscious lots of impressions that are useless or maybe even harmful. Now, I gave that example of a situation that is unpleasant, and every time you think of it, that impression becomes bigger. Now, we may have collected over time impressions of many, many different situations, and we have allowed them to grow big. And one area of impressions is around our sense of identity. Now, we may have acted and reacted and interacted in, for example, one false identity, one limited identity being maybe I'm ugly, or I am not clever, or people don't like me, or I'm poor, I am not intelligent, I always fail. Now, we may have over time collected impressions of a certain self-image that is undermining, that is not very high quality. Or we may have collected impressions of ourselves that are of arrogance and of overestimation, that I am the best of this and this and this. And those, I call them limited or false self-images or false identities. We may have collected lots of them in our mind, in our subconscious. And they create thoughts in the mind. Now, for example, if there is this false self-image or false identity of I'm ugly, or I'm not clever, then that might create triggers thoughts in our mind of I never know what is right. I always do things wrong and nobody likes me, and I am ugly. No one will ever love me. This may be like a chatter going on in the mind. And that creates a certain mood and a certain atmosphere and a certain feelings and emotions, and it also creates a certain behavior. And it comes from those impressions collected over time, which is like a false identity that we have created, a limited sense of self. We have created and we have reinforced that in the subconscious. And that triggers certain thoughts, a certain undercurrent of undermining the self and undermining your behavior also. Now that is, from a spiritual perspective, also not leadership. Well, the intellect may even try to modify it, but those impressions in the subconscious are very strong and they might bypass that intellect, or intellect might not be clear on how to deal with it. And this is where spiritual knowledge and meditation practice come in, because the spiritual knowledge says the true self is a divine spiritual being. The true self is an invisible, timeless, beautiful being of consciousness. Innately a being of peace, innately a being of joy, one who is a guest in this body and a traveler through time. This is the spiritual identity. This is the truth of the soul, the being of consciousness. This is the truth of everyone. But over time, we have forgotten this true self, the spiritual being who transcends the limitations of the body. And yes, body is young and grows old, gets, wrinkles, and maybe gets, gains weight, or maybe gets gray hair, all of those things. All of those are characteristics that are temporary, pertaining to the body. But the real self, the inner being, the higher being, is a spiritual being, a being who is free, a being who is innately bodiless and just comes into this body as a guest to play a part, to play this game of life. But the real self has higher qualities of wisdom, of purity, of freedom, of timelessness, imperishable. Body is perishable, but the being is not. And so more we gain this spiritual wisdom and through meditation experience the truth of this, new impressions get strengthened. Impressions of our soul identity and soul experiences. And bigger that becomes, and that becomes the source of our thoughts. That create thoughts and feelings in the mind. And you could say those limited impressions, they are like the false, limited, acquired idea of who we are. Now, one word that is used for all of that is ego. False identities acquired in our subconscious. And our true identity is this beautiful spiritual being of light. And impressions from that awareness, they empower us and empower the intellect to create other kinds of thoughts. So when we talk about inner leadership, one easy way to put this is to visualize this. There is this angel inside, little angel, and that is the true self. But over time, these limited ideas of ourselves have created negative feelings and negative emotions. So that is that other side of us that is acquired. It's like the little devil inside. And this little devil is creating havoc in this inner kingdom with all kinds of unpleasant thoughts and feelings. So more we realize that the true self is this being innately angelic in nature, empower this little angel, which is innate, which is the true self. And this little devil, let him become quiet. Empower the intellect through these more auspicious thoughts and taking the spiritual wisdom and allowing those thoughts to come into action. That is how you empower the angel within and disempower this ego and this ego-based thinking. And then you would be like a true leader. Not only you decide what is happening in the mind, but you also only allow thoughts of higher quality and auspicious thoughts and feelings in the mind, and not coming from that ego-based, useless or wasteful or unbeneficial thinking. So good luck on your journey of becoming boss in your own mind. And maybe some practical things for this, practical do's and don'ts, and then I'll open it up for some questions. It is good to create daily time for reflection. Make this like a habit. In the evening, before you go to bed, or in the morning when you get up, take some minutes and deeply reflect on purpose of the day and purpose of your life. And if you have that interest, take up a spiritual practice of meditation also. And make that part of your daily routine so that you really get back that inner kingdom. You become a king again here in that inner kingdom. Another practice that is useful is to diminish the bombardment of internet and social media information. Try to diminish what is not useful and what is not necessary, and stimulate your own inner creativity and your own enthusiasm and your own inner ideas to think them through instead of taking stimuli from social media or from films or entertainment, external entertainment. Bring that down and allow your own mind and your own intellect to breathe again and to create thoughts for themselves instead of absorbing thoughts and emotions from the outside. Another good practice is to what I call 3 times 3. 3 times 3. So 3 times a day, take 3 minutes to consciously appreciate and generate feelings of gratitude for the interactions with others and for the things that are there in your life. And even if you don't have anyone or nothing, at least you can be grateful for the daylight, the sun, creating sun. And if it is raining, feel gratitude for the rain that washes things away. 3 times 3, I call it. 3 times a day, 3 minutes, actively creating feelings of gratitude. So these are some practical things to work with. 3 times 3. Cut down on social media and entertainment and internet entertainment and television and external news. Bring that down. And as if start that inner motor of choosing and creative thinking for yourself. The third one was take time for reflection daily and reflect on your purpose for the day, your aim for the day, but also your purpose of life. And the fourth was start, if you haven't already, start a regular spiritual practice where you take in spiritual wisdom and the practice of meditation. That is how you build the capacity, the inner capacity to all the time be boss in your own mind. And observe, that may be a fifth one, during the day, observe within your own consciousness from which limited self-image you are thinking and operating, and substitute that for something more virtuous or something spiritual even. The real self is innately a higher being with higher qualities. And spirituality says a divine being, a timeless, imperishable, invisible being that is, who is secure, who is a traveler through time and space, a being of light, a being of peace and bliss, a being with innately divine qualities. So substitute those kind of be these self-images that are limited or that are destructive or that are negative, and substitute them with the understanding of your spiritual self, the true self. Okay. Anyone would like to ask something or say something? I think you can unmute yourself. Is that true, Jose? Can people unmute themselves?
Yes, you can unmute yourself if you want to share or ask anything.
No questions? If you don't want to say, you can also just type in the chat. That's also good. Very nice seeing some of you whom I know. Go ahead, Fabiola.
So I would like to say that, what do you say? I'm so happy with my life. I'm very content every day. I thank God every day for my life, for my children, for my partner here, for my 2 little dogs. And we are also having discussions here about the political things, how the world it is right now. And I say, well, nothing we can do. We can do around us, helping each other, right? So that made me content. That's the only thing I can say.
Very good. Very good.
Yes.
There is a slogan that we have within the Brahma Kumaris that we quite often use is when I change, the world changes. And so I cannot do much about other people and their doings, but if I become a more harmonious and peaceful person, then I am part of that world. So I have changed the world. I changed.
Share you first.
Yeah. And my change and my contentment can be an inspiration for others. Gandhi also used to say, no, be the change you wish for the world. So if you want everybody to be peaceful, at least you be peaceful.
Yeah, it's true. Thank you.
There is a lot of power in that, but first of all, let us get ourselves in the right frame of mind. Let us first be boss inside here. Then we might become worthy for external leadership situations if if you're so inclined.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who want to say anything or ask anything?
Come on, Marta. I know that you want to say something.
Yes, hello, sister. I'm in Peru, in Lima. It was lovely to hear you, and I would like to share a little anecdote or experiment with the students. We say, okay, we give them paper. I said, please write down everything that happened to you today or yesterday, but I think it was today. Okay, so they start writing. Okay, then we say, put this, what you wrote aside, and we give more another paper. This time you are going to write those things that you think were really nice things, beneficial things, you create joy and whatever. And you have no idea that the number of pages were bigger than the other one. But the interesting thing was that the first thing that came to mind was to focus on those things that were, as you say, unpleasant, that give us bad thoughts, waste of time, making think around the same thing. And they have to be asked to focus on the positive for them to realize, and this is so human, no? It happened to all of us, that the mind immediately, why jumps into negativity instead of deriving the joy of the beneficial things.
Yes. Those inclinations and those impressions of the negative have become so strong that it kind of pulls the mind in that direction almost naturally.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, anyone else, or should we go to a meditation?
Hi, Sister Rona.
Hello.
Hi. I have a question. So, we are aware of a teeny fraction of the thinking that goes in our mind. So, how can we control our thoughts, like our negative thought? Because if we want to aware just a little bit, a fraction, what it goes into our mind.
How
You
can
follow?
we control our what?
No. How can we control our negative thought if we only aware of a teeny fraction of the thinking that goes into our minds? How can we control those negative thoughts? Yeah.
We don't try and control the negative thoughts, but you inject positive thoughts consciously.
Mm-hmm.
So moment you notice this is there, you say, no, I want to think of something else. Or you consciously just take topics of positive thoughts and don't wait for you to become aware of what are the underlying currents. Just consciously choose to think about certain topics that are uplifting. And like for example, I myself, every day I have certain themes. No, I have in the morning, we have meditations and spiritual study. And from that spiritual study, I take 2 or 3 topics that I want to think of during my free time during the day. Free time for the mind. So when I am, for example, when I'm washing the dishes or I'm walking from one place to another, that is time when your mind is free. So I take those moments to, I have then 2 or 3 topics that I decided in the morning. These are things I want to think about more deeply. And then I deeply go into reflections. I don't wait until the mind get clustered and flustered and whatever. I consciously choose. But we have to kind of create a certain hobby to do that. Make it your hobby to create thoughts around themes of your interest.
Thank you.
Okay, so someone wrote, I have 2 teenagers at home and I want to be able to guide them, giving my best to them and radiating them with the power they need to change some damaging habit. Okay, so she's just sharing. Very good. Okay, well, we have just 3, 4 more minutes. So let's have some thought experiment or meditation together before we close. So we let the body be comfortable. Allow the shoulders to relax. Relax the arms, the hands, the legs, the feet, the abdomen. And just rest the back. If you're sitting on a chair, against the back of the chair. And just become aware of the position of the body in a relaxed way. And bring all your attention into this present moment. Become aware of breathing. Become aware of the heartbeat. And be aware of how the air is pulled into the lungs on inhalation and pushed out on exhalation. Inhale and exhale. And now become also aware that there is someone who is experiencing all of this. Experiencing these physical sensations. Experiencing body. There is for someone who is creating thoughts and feelings, the inner being. Being of consciousness, So, and we use the image of a tiny star sitting in the center of the forehead, behind the eyes, living light that symbolizes consciousness. That is the one who is operating this body. The real self. This one is sitting behind the eyes, using the eyes as windows, taking in the information through the ears. Invisible experiencer. One who is a guest in this body. A guest on this planet. Spiritual being of light. Timeless traveler. One who is free and imperishable. Living light. And as we go through the rest of the evening, let us aim to hold this awareness and come back to this awareness of true self again and again. And put the real self, the inner angel, in charge in my inner world. Om Shanti. Thank you. Have a
Shanti, sister. Thank you.
Shanti, thank you.
Yes, sister.
Om Shanti. Thank you,
Om
sister.
Shanti, sister. Shanti. Linda.